Chapter 2. William and Justine.
I took Henry to the university the next day. It wasn't easy. When I met my teachers, Monsieur Kremp and Monsieur Waldman, I didn't feel good. And when they talked of science, I felt very ill. Because Henry was a student of languages, I decided to change to languages too. After that, I felt a lot better. So Henry and I learnt languages at the university. I wanted to go home to Geneva in the last days of the autumn. But the weather that year was bad, with lots of snow and cold nights. So in the end, I stayed in Ingolstadt for the winter. With the new year, I began to think again of visiting my family. But before I left for Geneva in the spring, Henry and I went for a week to the mountains near Ingolstadt. The mountain walks were good for me. I loved the green country, the blue skies, the warm sun, and the beautiful spring flowers. But when we came back to Ingolstadt, there was a letter for me from my father. I read it quickly and felt afraid once more.
Victor, my son, I have some very bad news for you. Your brother William is dead. Yesterday evening, he and Ernest went walking in the open country at Planpalais. William ran away, and Ernest couldn't find him. We looked for him all night. Then, at 5 this morning, I found him, dead, under a tree. Someone killed him and took his locket with the picture of your mother in it. Come home soon, dear son. Elizabeth, Ernest, and I need you here. With love, your father, Alphonse Frankenstein.
I left for Geneva at once. But when I arrived, it was dark, and the town gates were not open. So I took a boat across the lake to Planpalais. There was a very bad storm that night, with lots of rain and lightning.
William! This storm is for you, my brother. The weather's angry about your death,
I cried. And then I saw something under some trees in front of me. It was my creature, the monster from my student rooms in Ingolstadt. What's he doing here? I thought. And then I suddenly understood. He's my young brother's killer, I said. He was. I knew it. I could feel it. Just then, the monster moved quickly past me and ran away to the hills. When they opened the town gates in the morning, I went to my family home and to bed. When I got up, my brother Ernest had more news.
"They've got William's killer,"
he said.
What? But how? When did they catch him?
"Not him, Victor. Her. It's Justine Moritz. A servant found William's locket in her pocket the day after he died. She's in prison now."
Just then, my father arrived.
Justine isn't the killer,
I cried.
Ah, Elizabeth too thinks differently.
My father said.
But then, who killed William?
I couldn't tell my family about the monster. How could I talk about bringing life to a dead body? It was a mad story, and I didn't want to finish my life in a hospital for mad people. So, I said nothing. That afternoon, Elizabeth and I visited Justine in prison.
"You aren't William's killer,"
Elizabeth said to her.
"Victor and I know that."
But the next day, lawyers began questioning Justine.
"Where were you on the night of William Frankenstein's death?"
One of them asked.
That evening, I visited a cousin in a village not far from Geneva.
Justine answered.
When I came back to the town, I heard about William. I went and looked for him for hours, but found nothing. Then, because the town gates weren't open, I went and sat under a tree. Perhaps I slept for some minutes there, but then someone came near me, so I got up.
"Why was the locket in your coat pocket?"
The lawyer asked.
Perhaps the killer put it there.
Justine said.
But why? And when? I'm sorry, but I don't know.
There were more questions and more answers. Elizabeth spoke for Justine.
"She's a good young woman. A servant in our house. Not a killer."
I said nothing. In the end, I could listen no more. I went home and slept very badly that night. The next day, Justine told the lawyers,
You can stop questioning me. I was the boy's killer.
Then the judge spoke.
Justine Moritz must die for this,
he said. That evening, Elizabeth and I visited Justine again.
"Justine, you're not William's killer. Why did you say that earlier today?"
cried Elizabeth.
I'm sorry,
Answered Justine.
you're right. I didn't kill William. But the priest visited me many times and said, You killed this boy, you monster. Speak truly now. In the end, I was tired. So I answered, yes.
Early the next morning, Justine was dead. Soon after that, we went to our country house in Bellerive. I went for long walks. I often took a boat out on the lake. I wanted to forget the past months. Why am I here when William and Justine are dead? I thought. They did nothing wrong, and I killed them. Perhaps I can find death in the cold waters of the lake. But I stayed alive for Elizabeth, for my father, and for Ernest.